Live. Let's go live, and we are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here in the Sunshine State of Florida. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your Saturday night to tune in wherever it is that you are tuning in from. It's great to see all of you tonight. I hope you've had a wonderful start to your weekend. I hope things have been crystal clear, or as crystal clear as they could possibly be, somewhat benign in your neck of the woods. Unfortunately, out in the tropics, things are starting to act up again. Albeit, I will openly admit, I'm a little astonished that we don't have as much activity as was initially anticipated. Granted, it is only August 10th. We have to remind ourselves of that. We had a lot of activity going on during the very beginning of the hurricane season, and I think that's why with each of these lulls, it's a bit difficult to get a grasp on exactly what's going to be happening and whatnot. But we have 98L on the board, and one thing is for certain. It is developing, it is organizing, it will be formed up over the next 48 to 72 hours, and everybody in the Leeward Islands, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico need to watch this very closely. Thank you all for tuning in, especially folks who may be residing in the Lesser Antilles. It's great to see you guys. We're going to get as much information to you as possible. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to cut the live stream just a little short tonight. I'm going to try to consolidate and compress all the information into about a 30-35 minute window. Unfortunately, one of the dogs in my family suddenly passed away. Just gone. And so we have to, it's been very rough over the last hour or so. So we're going to be sorting that out after this is all said and done, but I didn't want to cancel the live. I didn't want to reschedule the live because we didn't do one yesterday, so we're just going to blast right through it. This is it. This is 98L, soon to be Ernesto, and I'm very, very confident this will be Hurricane Ernesto. The problem is, and the question in the air still tonight is, will this be tropical storm or borderline Hurricane Ernesto as it moves through our Caribbean islands? Those are the ones we need to be paying close attention to. And I honestly almost want to go back to the thumbnail of this video, because the entire Eastern Seaboard should still be watching this, as well as Bermuda. If you look at the description of this video, I had mentioned that from the Lesser Antilles all the way through to the Turks and Caicos, the Bahamas, and the United States Eastern Seaboard need to be paying close attention to this. And our friends out there in Bermuda, I know a lot of you have been tuning in recently, which is great to see. I'm glad to hear it. This is going to be our primary area of concern, in my opinion. I do think that from Eastern Atlantic Canada through the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic are going to be our primary areas. Obviously, the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida are not off the table, but confidence is fairly low that we get something to wrap in that fast, and I'll show you exactly why. Where we are confident is the Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, U.S. British Virgin Islands are going to take a pretty good whack from this system as it continues to develop. If we look at the latest Hurricane Center 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time update, we have a 50-90 split, so I'm very glad that they've been on the ball with this feature. I had told you guys a couple of live streams ago that if I were drawing the charts, I would have slapped it on there very quickly because it is probably going to go up and up very fast. And as you can see, honestly, I'm surprised we're not even at a 100% chance over the next 7 days. It is Saturday, August 10th, and we will likely have a named storm on the board by Monday, Tuesday. And that is whereabouts we're thinking it will be positioned, somewhere just upstream of our Leeward Islands, headed through the U.S. British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Some of the recent model data does suggest it could move very similar to Tammy last hurricane season. A lot of you guys founded this channel during the coverage for Hurricane Tammy, and there's been a lot of updates in the last 12 to 18 hours that do suggest this could try to hook up towards the north and west a little bit faster. But the problem with that is we need it to organize faster. So we have to kind of champion this storm, cheer it on to get this thing to wrap up, consolidate, and flare up over the next 48 hours. Roxanne Hudson, thank you so much for the $5 donation. I do appreciate it. It's amazing for sure. The high pressure is going east, which will cause to go north. It will miss Florida guaranteed. We can't start saying guarantees. We cannot start saying guarantees. I'm not going to say any guarantees here. The only guarantee On this current projection is our Leeward Islands and our Puerto Rico Virgin Island friends need to be on alert and prepared for this. There's no other guarantee from that, and to say there's a guarantee this far out is a misnomer. That's not correct. We have such an enormous spread in our ensembles. Now, confidence does suggest it will move up towards the north and potentially become an Atlantic Canada or a Northeast United States issue. That's the growing trend, if anything. However, everybody is still on the game board, and in terms of future possible outcomes, looking at all of our ensembles across every model we have, everybody is still on the game board. It's only from 60 to 70 west longitude where we are pretty precise where it is going to go. Let's move on. This is a look at the feature in question coming together. If you look, it is definitely, and as a matter of fact, if you look at the beginning of this satellite loop, it's perfect. Because if you look here, you have just an enormous and elongated area of showers, thunderstorms, and vorticity with our wave. The wave axis is somewhere in through here, but then what's perfect here is if you look, as this goes through time and you fast forward, notice how our thunderstorm, I'm going very slowly through the loop so you guys can see. As you go through the loop, look at how our convection, see how it's consolidating? This is whenever you hear forecasters or meteorologists that you tune into, whether it be on YouTube, social media, actual television, when they say things like, we have a feature consolidating, this is what we mean. If we go back to the beginning of the loop, notice it was very oval in shape, almost like the Daytona International Speedway, and now we're going more into that nice little spherical circle. That is definitely the consolidation. That is the thunderstorm activity trying to consolidate and close in on a mid to low level circulation. Remember with these systems as well, I've mentioned to you guys on numerous occasions that with these tropical features, they start usually from the ground and go up. So you'll have your mid-level cyclone, MLC, you have your low-level cyclone, low-level circulation. That starts in the lowest portions of the atmosphere. It'll track down to the surface, and then from there, it'll start to create that vertical extent all the way up. You go to the end of the loop, and look at that. Yeah, that's looking very healthy. Very healthy. It's not the most impressive tropical wave, obviously. We've seen better in our history. I don't know what just happened with the tropical, there we go, with the Tropical Tidbits satellite, but if you look, really starting to get going. We're starting to really see that consolidation and really wonderful flaring up near our mid and low level circulation. Trying to already get that vertical stack too. Our center's probably somewhere in through here. We have good inflow on all quadrants of the storm. Very, very small hints that there could be some anticyclonic outflow trying to build over it. That's why I'm using such small arrows. It's very small, very minute at this time. It's just a wave. It's trying to bring itself into a disturbance. But regardless, it's getting there, and that's why I do think we're going to see formation sooner than later. Here's a look at the big picture. We're going to look at the big picture so we can more or less break down what's happening. So if you look up through here, obviously there's the storm, there's 98L looking pretty solid. We have more activity coming off of Africa, and right out of the jump start, if you guys look, there's really not a lot of dry air out there over the Atlantic. I'm going to delete that. There's not a lot of dry air over the Atlantic. And you can see it is very, very much so consolidated now up over the subtropics and up towards the western coast of Europe and northwest Africa. This is Spain and Portugal off to the extreme right-hand side. This is northwest Africa. You can see we are well to the north, latitudinally speaking, into the subtropics. Then up over the United States, we have some very interesting phenomena going on. So what's left of Tammy has been ripped. Just ripped and shredded, and is moving up off of eastern Canada into the North Atlantic Ocean. Then we have this giant blob of cooler air that's coming down out of Canada. A little unseasonal, to tell you the truth. A little unseasonal for this time of year, especially as we go through the peak of the summertime and start getting closer to fall. Remember, we still have, I want to say, at least a little over a month and some change before we start to really think fall time, but we still have very good cool air coming out of Canada. You can see an upper low and some associated short waves rotating around this trough that's trying to dig in. This is what the question we have, or this is the question in the air, exactly how far this is going to deepen, if we're going to see our Atlantic subtropical ridge really begin to cave in and meander off towards the east, become a bit more of an Azores favored oscillation or phase, and if that's going to pick up 98L. Now, truthfully, looking at the satellite image, I can definitely see this thing organizing and getting its act together as we go from here to somewhere out and through here as we're on approach. I believe if you guys follow me on my X and on my Instagram, I believe I posted it, I had mentioned to you guys that the Lesser Antilles, U.S. British Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico need to be prepared for anywhere between a low to mid-end tropical storm. I can see this thing organizing and fairly quickly, and it looks like it's already doing so in comparison to what some of our models are thinking. Then we also have our ridge out here over western CONUS that's providing us with our monsoonal action over the four corners, the desert southwest, the central Rockies. This is indicative of our positive PNA. If I were to switch over to a yellow marker, this is our long wave pattern right now. We're going into a positive PNA. Ridge over the west, trough over the east, and as a result, this is supposed to help us with a protective barrier in terms of what's going to be happening. There's another look. This is our static latest 12Z upper air analysis at 300 millibars with the black contours on the chart so you can see the heights. This is going to be your, change the color. This is going to be our ridge over the western United States. And then we have a trough digging in over the eastern United States. And there's that cold pocket, a little bit of a jet max coming around that's going to help to push more shortwave activity into the base of our long wave trough. And this is what we're hoping to see open up and extend further off towards the southeast, kind of propagate into those height falls that are likely occurring out ahead of it. And when I say height falls, basically just means cool advection. We have divergence aloft. We have our low pressure beginning to form up down towards the surface level, which is what's going to help to support frontal activity at the surface. And if you look here at our Ocean Prediction Center analysis, let me move my head out of the way so you can see. There's our front outlining the trough perfectly, right in through there. Here's a bit of activity that's associated with what's left over of Debbie, and I'm pretty sure that Debbie's remnants are up in through here. I haven't been watching the satellite too heavily in terms of what's going on with what happened with Debbie, exactly where it is that it's located on satellite on the charts. But if you look, we have pretty decent cool air coming in out of eastern Canada. This is Hudson Bay. This is Quebec and Ontario. Ontario, Quebec. It might be a little difficult to see because this is a weird domain. We're looking at the extreme North Atlantic. You can see this is Greenland. Then we have Iceland further up over in this general area. Here is Europe. And then we're barely seeing anything of Africa on this chart. But this front, there's our high. The high is still there. As it stands right now, the high pressure is in a bad spot to drive this system up towards the north. So it's the progression up over Canada and the United States that's going to help to impact where that anticyclone, this blue A or blue H, is positioned. And then here I have the analyzed water vapor chart here just so I can show you guys what's happening up there. I love to use this for more so of my severe weather forecasting, but the thing is, as I've mentioned several times, weather is interconnected across a global spectrum, and what's happening over the United States right now is going to play a huge role, if not going to be the dictator in terms of what happens with future Ernesto. So there's your trough. This is 500 millibars. So if you look at our 500 millibar heights, our contour lines, you can see that positive PNA starting to develop. Ridging over the west, trough out over the east. Not a very big trough, to tell you the truth. This is not really an extensive trough. This is not a deep amplitude trough. This does not suggest we're going to have a tremendous amount of severe weather. Granted, we're probably going to get some thunderstorms up there over the Midwest, the Northeast, and the Mid-Atlantic. You can actually already see what's happening down here in the Southeast associated with the cool air that's wrapping around. And remember, guys, we're in the summer, so, it used to be what we'd call analysis nightmare, trying to draw our fronts like we normally would in the fall, the winter, the spring, where we have stronger cold fronts, stronger jets. Right now, since we're in August, we're not going to have 40-degree temperatures on the upside of it, the upstream side of it, with 80-degree temperatures on the downstream side, so it's a little difficult to highlight these features. But rock with me. I'm sure we're probably the viewers are going to be confused. We're looking at the United States. I want to see the hurricanes. And it's like, well, bear with me. We're going through the forecast, okay? So here's our shortwave and all our cool air being pulled in over James and Hudson Bay, over central and eastern Canada. I was going to say Ontario. Yes, there's Ontario, but over the eastern segments of Canada, if you look at our 500 millibar winds, we have 50, 50, 50, 50, 50 knot wind barbs surrounding the base of the trough. That's what's going to help to pull it down just a little bit more, and this huge kink in our contour lines there, that's another short wave. If you look at these yellow X's, these are what's called vort maxes, vorticity maxes. And as a result, that indicates where we have energy in the upper levels that's going to be pulled down towards the south, wrap into our feature, and help to bring it down. And then as this gets brought down and that huge cold pocket aloft gets pulled off towards the east, that should set us up for success and draw this feature towards the north and away from impacting the likes of Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, the Turks and Caicos, the Bahamas, Jamaica. Shouldn't see anything from this. So we'll have to see what this does, and we'll have to watch our analyses going forward to see exactly how much of an influence this is going to play on the pattern as we go forward. Here's just a quick glance at our theta E. You can see that cool air up there, all these cooler values here. That's your cool air. All these reds are going to be indicative of our subtropical air, our bona fide equatorial tropical air, and there's your delineation. There's your front right there, as a matter of fact. We don't even need satellite or anything. You can see there's a low pressure there, a little theta E ridge, cold front, little warm pip, cold front, and there's your front moving down towards the south and east with all that good return flow supporting a warm sector right over top. What is that? Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, extreme eastern Canada. So this is what's going to possibly dork up the pattern and stop, finally, after the first 4 storms, system from making landfall in the mainland U.S., at least down here in the Gulf of Mexico in the southeast. The Gulf of Mexico is as off the table as could possibly be. This is our control member of the European model. The only reason I have this up is because this is like an extended look at what the Euro was thinking. You can track that system through. Bermuda taking a very close call there as we get into this time next weekend. But then if you go back in time, you can see European model as of 12Z, the control member of all of our ensembles put together, does have this moving right over top the Leeward Islands, right over our Virgin Islands, and beginning to intensify as it moves just barely, just a nudge north of Puerto Rico. So from Puerto Rico eastward, you need to be prepared, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You guys need to be paying close attention to this and be ready for tropical storm conditions, hands down. We don't have a forecast track yet. We don't have a named storm on the table yet, but I'm just going to let you know right now that we just got to be careful. We got to be prepared, okay? That's the period. That's the big thing. Then before it can actually begin to influence the weather for the Turks and Caicos, the Bahamas, it'll be pulled up. There's our frontal system right there, as a matter of fact. Look at this area of low pressure here. Look at this area of low pressure here. I know you can't, obviously it's just colors, tan, yellow, orange, red, but this is our baroclinic low here. There's your high pressure over the eastern United States. That's in response to our cool air coming down. There's your fronts right there. I know it seems weird that I'm drawing that in, but when you look at this stuff enough, you can see where the fronts and the patterns are. Here's high pressure here, high pressure here. That's supporting your warm sector there. There's your cold sector, your dry sector coming off the United States, and that's what's going to help to pick this thing up. And remember, it's very easy to... it's not easy. Let me rephrase that. It's not easy to forecast these systems, but when you have defined systems like what's forecasted here, this is a bona fide tropical storm at this point, if not a low-end hurricane. When you have very dominant tropical cyclones out there, you can look at the pattern more or less, just see what's going on out there. Yep, it's going this way for sure, because you can see high pressure indicated by our darker shades. This is all high pressure. Path of least resistance. Remember, high pressure flows to low pressure. So as a result, it's going to be picked up and it's going to move this according to this solution, obviously. According to this solution. So as you go through time, dangerously close as a possible major hurricane to Bermuda. If you look, it's difficult to see. There's blue shading in there. What that blue shading, if you look at the color table on the right-hand side, I'm moving my head to the left again. If you look at the color table here, there's your hurricane. We're down into the 970s and the 960s, so definitely a Category 2, Category 3 hurricane forecasted by the Euro, headed towards Bermuda, and then from there, obviously, we are very, very much so up in the air. This is showing no impacts to anybody else. It does not want to be a Lee 2.0. Thankfully. But then another reason why I bring this up is if you look, both the GFS and the long-range European model, both the AI and this model, are showing that enjoy the fish storm, or however you want to describe it. This is not a textbook fish storm. Obviously, 60 west is the barrier. It would have to bump off 60 west longitude and head back out to sea, affecting nobody to be considered a fish storm. You're probably still going to hear fish storm thrown around out there. That's okay. If you want to call it a fish storm because it doesn't hit the United States, absolutely. But the fact that people are going to get hit by this, that's not a fish storm in my department. It just means we missed a United States landfall. Technically, even though I know Puerto Rico is associated and affiliated with the United States, but you know what I'm talking about. Another reason I bring this up is if you look at the end of this without any additional tropical systems, again, I'm a little weirded out at the fact that August isn't lighting up like the 4th of July like it did last year for our El Nino season. If you guys remember right about now, around the 10th and all the way through, we had Emily, Gert, Franklin, Harold, Idalia, Lee. We had a bunch of named storms out there. Margot, all in rapid succession. Ophelia into September. So far, even the German model, the Icon model, has stopped forecasting that we're going to see anything else beyond that. So right now, we're just tracking Ernesto. Perhaps once we fully get into the standing wave of Africa, we will start to see more robust activity coming off of Africa. But where we stand right now, it seems like we're going to get another lull. It seems like 2024 is just one storm, take a break, one storm, take a break, one storm, take a break. Debbie hung around long enough to where it felt like we weren't going to get a break, but in essence we have, because Debbie's gone and we're now getting into our next invest. So it's surprising that we're moving at a slow pace towards the Atlantic peak of the season. But again, before I ramble on too long, the kicker here is, check this out. High pressure is going to return. And without any systems on the board, with this positive or this negative PNA coming in, this is not good. And I'm going to go into it for a second. If you want to hit me upside the head with the H word, by all means, go for it. I'm just looking at it and telling the facts. But if you look, this is not good if we don't want to see the landfalls return for the likes of the Mid-Atlantic, the Southeast, our Caribbean friends, and the Gulf of Mexico. Because if you look at this, our Bermuda High is back in business. We have a very strong component of the Azores extension. There's low pressure down here, and you can see where the path of least resistance is right up in through here. So that's kind of the kicker here. Again, if you guys have been watching my live streams, my favorite thing to say is with weather, it's give and take. With weather, it's give and take. So we may only be tracking one storm for the next week and a half-ish. Problem with that is, without any additional storms like we saw last year, that will allow our pattern to reset to a summertime pattern. And then as we get closer to my brother's birthday, 25 August, as a matter of fact, that's my little brother's 24th birthday. As we get closer to that, if we do get something wandering off of Africa, it's going to have a greater chance at moving off towards the west and getting into our Caribbean, or staying just to the north like Debbie did, the previous iteration of Debbie before it became a named storm, and then the southeast and the Gulf of Mexico go right back onto the table. Here's a look at our operational euro. So now here in the brief, we're just going to move into timing. We're going to move into timing, and we're going to talk exactly what it is that the models are thinking in terms of the timing. So you can see the euro is, I think, underdeveloping, taking its sweet time with this feature. But this is, as we're starting the day, well, I shouldn't say starting the day. This is 11 p.m. local time here in the eastern United States. Monday night into Tuesday morning, the Leeward Islands, the Lesser Antilles, could have a named storm knocking on their doorstep. So unfortunately, with where we stand right now, it seems as if this feature is going to be coming in and making a nighttime impact for our Leeward Islands particularly. Depending on how expansive this feature is, we cannot rule out gusty conditions and showers and storms for the likes of Trinidad, Tobago, our Windward Islands, Barbados, all the way from Grenada up through to St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Martinique, Dominica, and then all the way through the rest of our Leeward Islands. The Leeward Islands particularly are going to be the main event area. Northern half of our Lesser Antilles, the Leeward Islands. And then from there, if you look, the latest Euro tracks it right into our Virgin Islands and right into Puerto Rico. So this is why I want everybody in that area to be prepared. Everybody who's watching these videos, everyone who's sharing this information, please, as you share the info, let them know you need to be prepared down there in the Leeward Islands, the British Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. From there, it's a mixed bag. We just don't know. But you can see taking a direct hit before this thing scoots on up towards possibly Bermuda as a major hurricane. So then Bermuda will need to be paying close attention to this. The GFS is doing a little something special. The GFS continues to keep this thing on a southerly approach, which would be even worse for our Leeward Islands, a little bit more in terms of impactfulness for our Windward Islands. And it comes on approach, strengthening into a hurricane towards the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico on your south side, putting you in the worst of the system. And then it makes a direct impact into Dominican Republic, the Turks and Caicos, before it finally re-intensifies. And look at our cold front right here. There's our cold front. There's our nice warm sector right there. This thing is entrenched in that baroclinic system's warm sector, and that's going to pull it right towards the north. So you can see that traveling right away, or you can see that projected path a mile away. There it goes. And then it gets wrapped up in that frontal system. So if I move to our eastern United States AOI, you can see right there. Right there. I know this is a forecast and it might not happen. Obviously, we just need to watch this real time. But at this point, we could potentially already see it, just like Lee did last year. If you remember Lee, the hype storm, in my opinion, everybody was saying Florida for some reason. Everybody kept saying Lee's coming to Florida. I don't know why. We had Cat 6 Girl on TikTok. Don't know why. This is looking very, very Lee 2.0, to tell you the truth, coming up and getting wrapped up in our frontal system here. You can see it continues to hold on to its intensification, but also tries to battle through that temperature gradient as it goes up towards the northeast coastline. And if you look at our thermodynamics here, you can see right there, look at all that cold air advection getting in onto it. So if you go back to the beginning, notice there's not a whole lot associated. You get some red blips, some warm advection. You don't really have temperature advection. Remember, guys, this chart here is going to be your advection chart. What advection means is movement. So if I say warm advection, cold advection, dry advection, what that means is we have warm air moving, we have cold air moving, we have dry air moving. And with tropical systems, they don't like gradients. They don't like temperature lines like back over here. If you look, this would be considered a gradient. We have cooler air north, warmer air down to the south. This red shading would show us that the warm air is moving north. That's your gradient right there. If you look, tropical cyclone, we don't have a gradient because they are uniform. They are barotropic. They have ring-like structures as they travel. But then if you notice, as we go further in time with that frontal system coming off the coastline, look at that. It picks up cold and warm advection. It picks up that movement of air in its cyclone. So that could possibly dampen it down or hamper it. If you guys recall back on Lee last year, everybody was freaking out. That's why I call it the hype storm. I feel bad. I know it affected a lot of people, but regardless, a lot of people were freaking out about it. They were saying, oh, it's a Cat 5 and it's going to go back to Cat 5. But as soon as it got wrapped up in those non-tropical qualities, the jet stream and our temperature discontinuity that is associated with fronts, that's when it just never had an issue. Or, I mean, it just never had a fighting chance. It never got back to that Cat 4, Cat 5 status. It meandered as a Category 3 and then just slowly but surely continued to weaken down as it moved up towards the shoreline. And then this iteration of the GFS pulls it up into the northeast. So that's why I like to emphasize we cannot take our eyes off of this. It's not over till it's over. We need to be watching across the Eastern Seaboard. As my thumbnail implied, I would really be paying close attention in the mid-Atlantic up towards Atlantic Canada and everywhere in between. Down here in the southeast, we're just kind of keeping an eye out. Let's put it that way. We're kind of at like a 1 out of 5 risk level down here in the southeast and the Gulf of Mexico. I'd put us at a solid 2.5 out of 5 for the mid-Atlantic, and then I'd put us at a 4 out of 5. We need to be paying close attention and locked in as we get up towards the northeast and especially Atlantic Canada, Quebec, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, just like we saw with Lee last year. So not over here trying to make this, a big issue. We just got to get it out of the Caribbean. We'll go back down to the Caribbean, and this is a solution that we do not want to see unfold. In fact, I would honestly want to put my cards on the Euro versus this. The GFS has been doing fairly well this hurricane season, so I'm concerned. And as this tracks westward, it begins to intensify after crashing through the Lesser Antilles and begins its approach to our Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So again, You guys need to be prepared down there. We need to be nudging that like button. We need to be sharing this information so we can start getting people prepared. This is not the time to be saying we don't know. No, we know it's coming in. There's nothing that's going to change the path of this system to where nobody in the Caribbean is going to feel impacts. Beyond that, yes, there's still a lot of wiggle room for things to change. But in the Caribbean, the East Caribbean islands, we need to be pretty much on alert at this point. We need to be in action. This is not the time to watch and wait. We're beyond that point in time. We need to be just getting ready. This is the period where we have another 3 to 4 days to dial ourselves in, find where we're going to shelter in place, and hang on. Because if you look at the timestamp here, this is Wednesday morning, local time here in Florida, and it's south of Puerto Rico on this run of the GFS. You go back to the 12 Zulu, 12Z was thinking pretty much the same thing. You go forward in time, strengthens, continues to move through, and then takes a direct hit right through Dominican Republic. This could have implications on the system as well. There has been some discussion, and why it is I do not want to take the Southeast entirely off the game board. That's why I'm giving us that little 1 out of 5 risk ratio here. And it grows as you go further towards the north, because if we do see this take its time strengthening, move that southerly approach, just like the GFS is indicating, it might stay shredded and weak enough to where it misses this area of low pressure associated with our trough and our surface fronts and continues to move closer to the state of Florida in the southeast. Let's not forget, yesterday, I believe at 12 Zulu, we saw that. Look at this weak system, very weak, and came very close. This is still on the table. It's definitely still on the table. Obviously, what we're locked in is this. This is what we have locked in. This area is going to be under the gun for tropical storm, if not hurricane warnings. I would anticipate tropical storm watches will be out as early as Sunday, or Monday into Tuesday, and then the warnings will go out shortly after that. This is a solution that could possibly unfold. A weaker solution would allow this system to track more towards the west and put other players on the map. So we don't want to start calling it too far out before it's over. We don't want to go saying it's over before it's over. And if you looking at the ensembles here, everybody is a huge spread. There's a huge spread of these ensemble tracks, and I'll zoom you in a little bit closer so we can see these are our GFS ensembles. 12Z looked like much of the same. 12Z still brought it in. We had a nice little area of bifurcation, and what that basically is a splitting effect. You have solutions that cluster here, you have solutions that cluster here, solutions that cluster here, and what that tells us is the model is not confident, but it is growing confidence. If you look at yesterday's solution at 18 Zulu, I was like, what? And I even sent my buddies in the chat. I'm like, what the heck is this? This here is no confidence look at that. That is that is not confidence, and I can't help but crack up because that's the GFS basically, and I'll switch to the AOI again. We'll go to the Eastern US. Look at this. That's basically the GFS. As some of you out there, and I know a lot of you out there, not in the chat, but I mean like just in the public. I'm not addressing you guys in the chat, I promise. Not anyone watching in the future or anything, but I know there's a lot of folks out there who will scoff and laugh at our weather forecasts and the meteorologists. And in this case, this is a prime example of what you think our job is like. Well, it could go here, might go over here, it might go this way before going that way and then turning this way. That's literally what the GFS said. We're going to get impacts in the Caribbean, and then from there could go to Texas, could go to Nova Scotia. So this is what tells us we're not very confident. If I switch back to the Western AOI and we go to 18 Zulu, this shows more confidence. It's not the most confidence. We still have our large spread, but if you think about it from an ensemble standpoint, if we take the chat right now and we take you guys and turn you into a 369 member ensemble suite, this is like saying 100 of you guys go towards the Bahamas and go towards Florida, 100 of you guys go towards the mid-Atlantic, and then 100 of you guys go towards the Northeast. That doesn't sound very confident, but it is confidence growing. Does that make sense? If I go back to 18Z yesterday, this solution here would be like if 10 of you went this way, 12 of you went this way. Let me draw. That'd be like if 10 of you went this way, 12 of you went this way, 15 of you went this way, 12 of you went this way, 20 of you went this way, 50 of you went this way. That's not confident. That's not confident because we have so many people going in different directions. It's like the show Lost. You crash on an island and you don't know who to follow, so you're just going to run everywhere on the island. Whereas if you go to 18Z today, we now have our, quote, survivor groups. We have one area of the pack headed this way. We have more members in a nice group headed this way. We have more members in a group headed this way. We have more members in a group headed this way, as opposed to yesterday where the GFS was like, could go here, 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 here. That's not confident. We're not confident in ourselves. Now the GFS is starting to increase confidence, just not very much. If you switch over to the Euro even doesn't have very much confidence, but the general steering is there. It's just a matter of how fast it's going to move. And if you look, we have some members that go all the way into the Carolinas and other members that pull it all the way up towards the Northeast, and it avoids everybody besides Bermuda on its way out. So that's why I emphasize the only area of this forecast that we're locked into is down here. In the East Caribbean, you need to be preparing, you need to get ready because the system's going to be here before we know it, and it's coming in, and it'll be here within 3 to 4 days. You have about 96 hours maximum before this feature gets up in there and starts to cause ruckus for you guys. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping up this live stream. Thank you very much for you guys tuning in today. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your Saturday night to join us for this weird iteration of Weather Center Nazario. Like I said, I have family thing. I don't know about you guys, off topic, but whenever an animal dies in the family, it's like family. There is no question. I'm not the type of guy who consider pets as ornaments. You've seen Willow here on the live streams. Willow's like my daughter, and it just stinks that beautiful German Shepherd too. His name was Simba, and he passed away. So we're gonna go deal with that here momentarily. But just want to show you guys the H-Wharf. I see discussion in the chat. The H-Wharf, what the H-Wharf is thinking, coming in as a tropical storm, possible hurricane to our Leeward Islands, and then from there, oh hell no, excuse me, we don't need this to go down this way. Cat 2, possible borderline Category 3, moving towards Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic. Whoa, this is taking it west, too. What the heck is going on here? Shucks, I'll have to check this model run when it's done, but this is going west. This is following the GFS. This is moving right into the Turks and Caicos next Friday, so we're going to have to pay attention to this. I do not think our hurricane models do this. That's the wrong storm. Very eerie that there's a Maria in the Pacific. That's kind of spooky for my Puerto Rico viewers out there. But I'm pretty certain that the HAFS models don't do this. Yeah, it looks like the HAFS models take it and turn it much quicker. The H-Wharf, however, does seem to turn it much slower. And see, this is why we need to be paying close attention to this. The H-Wharf is taking it way too close for comfort. There we go, yeah. So no identifiable turn just yet, according to our H-Wharf. So we'll definitely need to see what happens. But I'm glad you guys mentioned that in the chat. This is definitely something worth monitoring. We're going to have to see because the H-Wharf has a proven track record this season as well. Did phenomenal with Beryl. It did pretty decent with Debbie. As a matter of fact, it did very good with Debbie because the HAFS models, if you guys remember, the HAFS A and B kept it further west. The HAFS A and B kept going for Apalachicola, Panama City, whereas the H-Mon and the H-Wharf, albeit they're supposedly obsolete models, kept it closer to our coast and bring it in a little further to the east. So we're going to have to watch this. We're going to have to keep our eyes peeled. Caribbean friends out there, wherever you're watching from, it's time to start preparing. Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, the Leeward Islands. We definitely have to watch closely and work to get ourselves squared away now. But that's all I got, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you could tell I'm a little lower energy. I've been very tired, very just physically and mentally worn out over the last 24 hours, so I apologize if it does seem like I was a little more lower energy or I'm not as into this, on top of just what's going on with the loss of our animal, but just physically, I'm like, ugh. I need a moment to breathe. But regardless, we're not going anywhere. We're going to keep working hard for you guys. And we might see you tomorrow. If we get any pressing updates, we may do something tomorrow. If not, we'll see you again bright and early on Monday. As always, plan for Monday. If I do break live tomorrow, obviously it's because we have pertinent information to get across to you, but plan for Monday, guys. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop them in the comment section down below. Thanks for being such a wonderful audience tonight. Please consider clicking that subscribe button and nudging the living daylights out of that like button so we can get this information out there to you guys, okay? Yeah, and TRG, thank you for tuning in. Thanks to my moderators, I do appreciate it. We got to make sure that we are on top of our game. So yeah, we can keep these live streams running and trucking. Evan Freiberger, thanks so much for tuning in tonight, buddy. It's great to see you, and I do appreciate the condolences. I'll update you guys on that as well, because right now we're at a loss. We don't know where this came from. I had just seen Simba like 5 days ago, and he was full of life. He jumped on me. Dude's a huge German Shepherd. He's huge, and I love big dogs. I have a smaller dog. My family and I have a smaller dog, a little miniature schnauzer, and obviously you know Willow, my little cat, but I love big dogs. The Shepherds, the Huskies, the Dobermans, the Rottweilers. Give me a big dog, and I'll wrestle with you. I love them, so it's heartbreaking to see Simba gone, and we're gonna go handle that now. So we'll see you guys again maybe tomorrow, if not plan for Monday. But until next time, have a beautiful rest of your Saturday. This is Weather Center Nazario signing out.